everyone, I'm Ashley, owner and designer at Kismet Crochet. Today's video tutorial will be a supplement to the PDF pattern for this dress, which I call the Not Your Granny Stitch Dress. I will be showing you the fundamental steps needed to construct the dress, but for exact stitch and row counts, you're going to want to purchase the pattern, which is linked in the description below. For the Not Your Granny Stitch Dress, you're going to be working with the Yarn Bee Yarntopia yarn. This colorway here is Hummus. It's a number 2 sport weight yarn, and it feels really soft. I really love the hand of this yarn. It really just glides. You do want to be cautious though, because it can get tangled up easily just because it's so soft and silky. You'll also want a contrasting color yarn of the Yarntopia. This one here is Scarlet. For the dress, we actually worked in the colorway Spice, but I actually did not have a new ball to show you, but this here is a really nice color, Scarlet. You'll want 2 crochet hooks, size G 4mm and size H 5mm, scissors, tapestry needle for sewing in those loose ends, and stitch markers. For this dress, stitch markers are going to be your best friend. So if you don't have some, I suggest purchasing them, or even safety pins, anything you can have. This dress is not super complicated, but the stitch markers just make it so much easier to stay on track. We're going to be working with our size H 5mm hook in our Hummus yarn. So the first thing you want to do is make a slip knot on your hook. And for this tutorial today, we're going to be working with the size small. So for the size small, we're going to be working 162 chainless foundation stitches. And if you haven't done the chainless foundation stitches before, no problem. I'm going to walk you through it right now. So the first thing you do is chain 2. And then you're going to be going in that first chain you made. So you're going to go straight down into stitch. And not only do you want to go under this bar here, but you want to catch that back one. So I find if you go straight down with your hook, you can usually catch both of them right there. So you see the first bar and then the back bar. And I will say, I think the first and second stitches are probably the most difficult. And once you get going, it does get easier. So don't get frustrated. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then you're going to yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So continuing this, you're going to be working under this vertical bar here. And like I said, go straight down because you also want to catch that back bar right there. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So just keep practicing that. You're going to want to get a total of 162 chainless foundation stitches for your size small. I'm going to do a couple more and then we'll turn it sideways and show you how that comes together. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Again, I want to catch this bar here, but I am going to go straight down to make sure I catch both of them. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So once you have all those stitches done, you're going to actually turn it sideways. I'm going to tighten that slip stitch. Okay, so there you can see your foundation row is going to go sideways, and you're going to see your chains right there, right on top. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 chainless foundation stitches. And I like this so much more than a regular chain because it has give. Do you see how that gives a little bit of stretch? A traditional chain just has no give, and it makes it really hard to work with sometimes. But not only does this have some give, it also looks a little more decorative. So it's really nice to start out with that chainless foundation. So just continue this process until you get that row. And I do want to show you, if you just find this too difficult to catch that second loop, it does get easier, like I said, as you go. But if you just have a hard time, you can catch just this loop right here. It's not going to be detrimental. It will end up giving a little bit different look, but you can catch this loop and just do the same process. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Now going through both loops is the correct way to do. However, it's not a big deal. It's not going to be detrimental to your design or your finished product. So If you find it too difficult to catch both those loops, go ahead and just catch the first one. You're still going to end up with that chainless foundation that looks nicer, and it's still going to have some stretch and some give, which is what you want. So continue with this until you have a total of 162 chainless foundation stitches. Okay, I've just completed 162 chainless foundation stitches. You can see how once it gets going, it looks really nice. It kind of starts out looking a little sloppy, but it really shores up as you go. So what you want to do now is find the beginning stitch that you started with, and you want to make sure that you're not twisting this chain, because we're going to slip stitch these together, forming a giant ring. So find the first chain right here, insert your hook, and slip stitch that right together. So this is going to be the bottom of your dress, the hem. We're going to be working from the bottom up. So just double check that's not twisted. It looks great. And don't worry about this tail hanging off here. Later we can come back with our tapestry needle and tie that in, and it'll look nice and clean. So before going forward, I do want to stress, if you haven't done so already, please do your gauge swatch. You really don't want to get far into stress or work the whole dress up, spend all that time and effort, and find it's too big, it's too small. So really take the time to make sure you're using the appropriate hook size for your tension. My daughter in particular crochets really tight as opposed to me, so our gauges are completely different. So make sure you do that gauge swatch first. Okay, so going forward with round 1, we just slip stitch that together. You're going to chain 3. This is going to act as a double crochet. You're going to do 2 more double crochet right in that stitch, creating your first cluster. Right there. So that's a cluster. We're going to go and skip 2, skip 1, 2, and then do a cluster in that third stitch. And a cluster again is 3 double crochet. We're just going to keep repeating this pattern all the way around. Skip 1, 2, 3 double crochet in the third. Skip 1, 2, and double crochet in that third. Do this pattern all the way around, and I'll meet back up with you and we'll start our round 2. I've just finished the last cluster of round 1. Find that top chain of your chain 3 that you started with, insert your hook, and then slip stitch that to join. So you've just completed that round 1 of your dress. You should have a total of 54 clusters at this point. Chain your 3, and then you're going to flip your work. So each round, you're going to want to make sure you're flipping. You're going to be working front to back, front to back. And this is really important because of this chain 3 that you start with. It almost acts like a seam in your piece, and I'm going to show you. So theoretically, you could work this in the round because you are coming around each time, but the problem with that lies in that chain 3 starting. So here's a mock-up that I started with when I was creating this design, and I'll show you because I was working the round initially, but you'll see right here, you can see this diagonal line. So that's created by that chain 3. So if you work in the round, it'll start floating each round and kind of wrapping around your work. You definitely don't want that, not for a garment, not for a tank top or a dress, because it's going to wrap around your piece. And it's not very obvious at first when you start, but as you go, it just becomes really distinct. So we don't want that. So don't work in the round. Make sure you're flipping front to back, and you'll still have a slight seam. But this is going to stagger. It's going to start here, and then the next row will come here. It'll just stagger each row like this, but it will stay in a nice uniform line. And that line will actually end up being your center back. So it won't be as noticeable because it is right there on the center back line. So, okay, so going forward with round 2, we did our first 3 chains and we flipped our work. So now we're going to work 2 more double crochet in that space. So from here on out, we don't need to count. It's going to be great because we already counted. We made sure we had our 54 clusters. So now we're just going to do a cluster in every single space around. So work these clusters all the way around. You're going to do this just like you did round 1. And then when you get to the end of your round 2, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to do a cluster in that last space on round 2. And then you're going to slip stitch to that top chain right there. And remember, round 3, flip your work. So same thing every single round. We're going to chain 3, 2 more double crochets in that first, and work clusters all the way around. I want you to repeat this for a total of 7 rounds. We're not going to be doing any increases, not any decreases. Total of 7 rounds. And I will meet back up with you at the end of round 7. And then we're going to start our decreases on round 8. Okay, so I've just finished our 7th round of the granny clusters. I'm starting the 8th. So same as every other round, 3 chains and then 2 more double crochets in that space. So round 8 is going to be the first of our decrease round. So our chain 3 and our join every single round is going to be the center back of our dress, and our decreases are going to be on the side, right on our hips throughout the whole dress. So follow along with your pattern, and depending on your size, for the size small, we're going to be doing clusters in the next 12 spaces. And then we will be working our decrease, which I will show you. So this is the 12th cluster, and we're going to next decrease over the next 2 spaces. So the way we're going to do that is essentially decrease 2 clusters to 1 cluster. So normally you'd have a cluster in this space and a cluster in this space. So we're going to combine it, create 1 cluster, which is essentially going to sit right on top of this cluster, the cluster from round 7. But it's going to do that decrease, which is going to land on our hips and start giving shape to that side of that dress. So to decrease over 2 spaces, you're first going to do a regular double crochet into that next space, yarn over as if you're doing another double crochet, but only pull through 2. Now keep those 2 loops on the hook and work these tighter. I always like to keep my tension tighter for the decreases because you are squeezing these 2 spaces into 1. It has a tendency to let these get loopy. So keep a little bit tighter tension. Yarn over again, and then we're going to go to the next space as if you're doing double crochet. Now pull through 2 and pull through all 3. Do 1 last regular double crochet in that last space, and there you've created that decrease. So right there, that decrease, you've created 2 clusters into 1. And go ahead, take your stitch marker, always mark these decreases. Just wrap it right around the cluster and leave these on until your dress is done. Really, stitch markers are going to be your best friend for this dress. Just helps you mark and helps you keep track of your rounds. You know, you can go back to these stitch markers and say, okay, I know this was my 8th round where I did that first decrease. So from here, keep continuing doing your clusters. These will wrap around. This is going to be the front. And we're going to do those clusters in the next 25 spaces. You're going to come to your other side and then just work the same pattern, working that decrease on the side. So again, these decreases are going to fall on the hip. From here on out, just go ahead, follow the same pattern. It's going to be super easy. Follow along with your PDF, depending on what size you're working on. Work those granny stitch cluster rounds, and then paying attention to your decrease rounds. Make sure every decrease round, when you decrease that cluster, you wrap that stitch marker around it. It'll really help later on the pattern. So go ahead and work your complete body of the dress, and I'm going to meet up with you once you have that body done, and we're going to work up the straps. So the next thing you're going to want to do, if you haven't already woven in that loose end at the back, go ahead and do that. but turn to your back. Now remember, your center back is where each time you're joining with your chain 3s. If you look slightly, you can kind of see it. It's really subtle, but should follow this line here. So if you go to that line, you can find your chain. So right here, I can see the chain is right here. And then on the next row, it's right here. And that last row, it's right there. So go ahead and take a stitch marker and place that right in that space right there, marking your center back. Now you're going to be using stitch markers for this. You're going to want 2 of the same color for the center back and center front, and then 2 of the same color marking the sides. It's just really helpful. So start with the center back, and then for the size small, you're going to count over 9 clusters on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then put a stitch marker of the contrasting color in that space. You want to make sure you're marking spaces. Come back to the center back, count over 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then your same yellow stitch marker for marking the other side. So right now you have 2 of the same stitch markers marking the side seams, and then a red marking the center back. Turn to your front, and we're going to do the same thing and mark our center front. But for these, there's going to be 10 clusters between. So starting at that side seam, count over 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then your center front stitch marker will go in that space. We want to double check just to make sure we're on track. Make sure there should be 10 between here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. So right now, our red mark our center front and center back, and then the yellow, the side seams. So this is going to be for our straps. It's going to be really helpful. So we're going to start with this strap right here, which is going to be your right front strap as worn. We always call it as we're wearing it. So it'll turn, it'll actually be on our right. So continuing with our size H crochet hook, we're going to insert right here in this space, which is our center front. Going to yarn over and pull up a loop and chain 3. Now we're going to be working the same clusters, but we're not going to work 2 more double crochet in this space creating cluster. Instead, we're going to skip to the next space and start our clusters there. Okay, so we're going to do a cluster in each space, each of the next 9. So here's 1, working on 2, and that's going to bring us over to that side seam. We're not going to work a cluster in that space with the yellow stitch marker. We're actually only going to work 1 double crochet, which is going to give us that decrease. We're going to start shaping these straps right away. Let's work these clusters all the way across. Okay, this should be your 9th cluster right here, which is going to be the space right before that stitch marker. So right when we get to that side stitch marker, right there, we are not going to do a cluster in there. Instead, we're just going to do 1 double crochet. And that's going to kind of start making an angle on those sides, shaping it. Chain 3, and then turn. Okay, so row 2, same thing. We are not going to do a cluster in this space. We're going to skip to this next one, do a cluster. So we're doing clusters in the next 8 spaces. So this is our 8th cluster. And then when you come to the other side, we're just going to do 1 double crochet in this space right here. So just doing 1 double crochet is kind of decreasing. I call it decrease because you're decreasing it up this way. You see it's making a slanted edge and decreasing each row by a cluster. So it's giving that strap a nice shape. Go ahead and chain 3 and then turn for your row 3, and you're just gonna keep repeating this process for your first 5 rows of the strap. Again, skip that first space that you have your chain 3 and do a cluster in the next one. And just keep doing the clusters across, do your decreases on each side for the first 5 rows. And row 6 is gonna be a little bit different because we're gonna stop doing that decrease on the armhole side. We want that to start just building straight up and not decreasing anymore. So we'll meet back up starting with row 6 and I'll work you through that. So we finished row 5. So at the end of row 5, you'll see you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters and a decrease stitch on each side. So remember, the red is the center front, so we're getting that nice slant edge. Yellow is the side of your armholes. You are getting a slanted edge here, but now we're going to start just taking it straight up. This side will still decrease, giving that nice angle, but we're just going to build that armhole straight up, okay? So starting with row 6, chain 3 and turn. So what we're going to do is we have our chain 3, which acts like a double crochet. We're going to go ahead and do 2 more double crochet in that same space, creating a cluster. And this will start just building that straight up like I talked about. No more angle on the armhole side. Then do clusters in the next 4 spaces. And then we're going to do 1 double crochet in that last space, giving that decreased stitch because it is that front right there. You remember, you see the red, you know that's your front side. So we still want that nice angle, giving that V neckline. So end of round 6, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters. Sorry, 5 clusters. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters, and you have that decreased stitch on the neck line side, the front side. Row 7, chain 3, and you're still on that neckline side, so we're going to skip that first space, go into the next space, creating our cluster. We're going to cluster in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and then we're going to end up doing a double crochet in the top of this chain 3 right here from row 6. Okay, so that's my 4th cluster, and then I'm going to go ahead and do 1 double crochet to the top of this chain 3 from row 6, and chain 3. And turn. So I see I am on my armhole side, so I'm going to be keeping this straight, not reducing. So again, the 3 chains acts as a double crochet, so we're going to do 2 more double crochets in that same space, creating a cluster. And just repeat this pattern, the same process. You're going to do cluster in the next 1, 2, 3 spaces, and then 1 double crochet in the last one, decreasing that side right there, which is the neckline. So keep repeating this process, follow your pattern. For the size small, you're going to end up with a total of 15 rows for the front straps, and you'll be ending with 1 cluster and then a double crochet on each side. So I've just finished row 15 of the first strap. Go ahead and cut off and pull through. So you can see here's the center front. You should have 15 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Your 15th row should end with 1 cluster and a double crochet on each side. So you can see you have that nice angled neckline in the front. And on the side, right here would be like your armpit. So right here, I'm around the armhole. You have a little bit of a decrease right here, giving it shape, and then it builds straight up. So go ahead and weave in these two loose ends, the one where you started at center front and the one at the top of your strap. And then we're going to go over and do the left front strap. Okay, so we've got our completed right front strap right here, and now we're going to go on and do our left front strap. So it's pretty much the same process, but it's a little different because we'll be starting at the side instead of starting at the front. So it's a little bit different, but same concepts. Then turn, and you'll be starting just like before. Insert your hook right where that yellow stitch marker is, that side seam. Yarn over and pull the loop. And again, we'll be doing our decrease, shaping that right away. So no more double crochets in that space. We're going to go ahead and skip to the next space and work a cluster. So you're going to work a cluster in the next 9 spaces, just like you did that right strap. Okay, that was our 9th cluster, which brings us right there to that stitch marker of center front. So you can see on the right front strap that chain 3 we started right there. We're going to go ahead and do 1 double crochet in that same space with that red stitch marker. So that will be our first decrease stitch, creating that V neckline. We already have it angled on this side. Now we're going to start working the angle on this side of the strap. So just follow your pattern. We're going to do the same process as we did for the first strap. Just like I told you before, we're going to be working 5 rows of clusters with a decrease on each side. And then when we hit row 6, we're going to start just building up that armhole and not doing any more decreases. So work through the other left strap and then just follow your pattern. Go on to your back straps. They are slightly different. The row counts are slightly different, so make sure you're paying note of that. And then I will meet back up with you and we'll work through connecting the straps at the shoulders and then working the edge trimming around the tank. Okay, so we finished both our front straps and our back straps. You'll see on the back straps, they're ending with 2 clusters. In the front straps, you'll be ending with 1 cluster and a double crochet on each side. So for the front straps, I tied it off and wove in those loose ends. But on the back, I left yarn tails, which I like to do on one side. So then you can use the yarn tail and your tapestry needle to seam those shoulder seams together. And it's just less yarns to weave in later. So right now I have right side facing me. So here is how the strap will look. They'll be sewn together right here, which will be your shoulder seam. But we want to take it and turn it so right sides are facing each other. So right now the right sides are on the outside of the garment. You can turn it inside out if that's easier for you, or you can just twist it around, whatever works best for you. Let's see. I went ahead and turned it inside out. So right now my right sides are facing each other. Just going to match those up, and then using your tapestry needle, thread it onto this yarn tail. Just go ahead and stitch these together. Just really nice and tight, especially right there at the edges. I like to pull that pretty snug and tight. I think it's always a good idea to do a couple extra stitches right on the edges just so they don't pull loose. So once you think you have that, you can kind of open it up and look and see. Looks like it's nice and clean and attached. So it looks good. Go ahead and tie this one off and weave in those loose ends, and then repeat the same exact process with the other shoulder seam. Okay, so we've got our shoulder straps seamed. There, right there, looks really nice. And now the next step to do is to do our neckline edge trimming and our armhole edge trimming. So we're going to start with our neckline. Go ahead and we're going to size down to a size G crochet hook. And we're going to find the shoulder seam right where you seam those together on the inside. It doesn't matter which side you start on. I'm going to go ahead and start right here and put your hook in right there, right about where you made that seam. Find my yarn, okay. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Let's see. I'm tangled up here. And chain one. So now we're going to be working extended single crochet around the entire neckline edge. So right here you'll see we're starting with a space. So for the spaces we're going to be working 3 extended single crochets into the space. For the side of the double crochet, or sometimes it actually might be a chain, we're going to only be working 2 extended single crochets. So right now we're going to be starting with a space. So for extended single crochet, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, just like you would for normal single crochet. Yarn over, but instead of pulling through both, you're going to pull through one, yarn over, and pull through the second. Since we're in a space, we're going to work 2 more for a total of 3 extended single crochets in that space. Okay, now we're going to the side of this double crochet, so we will only be working 2. And it doesn't matter exactly where you go, just try and catch a stitch that's easy to grab. This one right here looks good. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. We need to do 1 more on the side of this double crochet cluster, so we're going to grab this stitch right here, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. And now we're coming to a space again, so 3 extended single crochet. There's 1, 2, and 3. And right here we're going to start going to just spaces, which makes it a lot quicker, a lot easier than working into those sides of those double crochet clusters. So just work this all the way around until you get to the bottom of that V right there, your center front neckline, and I'll meet up with you. Okay, so we made it down to our last space before hitting that red stitch marker, which is marking center front. Do your 3 in that space. And then what you want to do is just come in the space right between, because this strap is coming up through this space and this one's coming up through the same space. Both of these straps are attached to this one space. So what we want to do when we get there is just go in here and slip stitch right to that same space with that stitch marker. Okay, and then going on, we're just going to do 3 extended single crochet up the other side, just like we've been doing. You can go ahead and take out that stitch marker afterwards. You really don't need it anymore. And just work this all the way around until you come up to where you started here at the top strap. And then you're just going to join with a slip stitch or an invisible join and then fasten off and weave in that loose end. Once you get that done and finished off that entire front neckline, I guess it's going to be front and back neckline, do the exact same process with your armhole. You can start it right at the top and work those extended single crochet all the way around. When you're done, that will be complete for your trimming, and then you'll be ready to go on to your contrast stripe trim. So at this point, we finished our neckline edge trimming and our armhole edge trimming. It looks really nice, and you can see how it just gives it a nice polished finished look. The next step is to go on to our stripes. So starting with the front side facing you, you're going to find your center front point of that neckline, right where it comes down. So right here, there's a space. You're going to go down and count your second cluster down. So 1, 2, this is your second cluster, and take a stitch marker and put it right around cluster number 2. Now this is where these stitch markers will really come in handy. So going down, we're going to skip one and put another stitch marker on cluster number 4. Cluster number 6. And we're just going to go down and skip every other one, wrapping a stitch marker, right around those clusters. One, two, three, 4. So these are really helpful, marking your clusters, keeping this in line, and really starting those contrasting V stripes. So we have those marked. We're going to be using our size G, just like the neckline edge trimming. What we're going to do is we are going to find that first cluster that we marked. Now find the space directly to the right of that, and you're going to be following that spacing all the way up in this diagonal fashion, right to where it meets the edge of this armhole right here. So you can see I'm going to put my crochet hook right there. So you're going to be following this line all the way up, that spacing. So I'm just going to follow this all the way to right here, and I'm going to put my hook right in that hole. So it's right where the top of this cluster meets the bottom of this one. And we're going to be working our cluster stitches right on the surface, just like surface work, but instead we're going to be going in these spaces right here. So go ahead and take your contrasting yarn. I'm using the color Anchor in the Yarntopia, and leave a bit of a yarn tail. These are helpful for sewing those down at the end. So I leave it a little bit longer. Yarn over and pull up a loop. And then you're going to chain 3, just like when you normally do your clusters. And then you do 2 more double crochets in that space. Creating that first cluster. So that's going to sit right there. So right now it's going to be kind of floppy, it's going to kind of hang. Don't worry about that, and don't worry about this tail. When we're done, we're going to come back and sew all of those down. So we're going to be working down this way. So each time we're going to be doing our clusters in these stitches, these spaces right here, right on the top. So we're just going to continue down in a diagonal fashion. It's easier if you pinch it like this. Your hook just goes right in that space, and do your cluster. Just really easy to follow. Just work these all the way down until you reach that stitch marker on cluster number 2 that we marked. So right here, we're going to work these all the way down, and then when you reach right here, when you do your cluster diagonal right there to that space to the right of that stitch marker, that's where I want you to stop, and I'll meet up with you. And work these clusters all the way down. I'm almost to that first stitch marker. I have one more cluster to do right here, right to the right of that stitch marker. So once I get that last cluster right there, that's where I'm going to stop. So here you can see your stitch marker around that cluster, and then we have one of our contrasting color right to the right of space, kind of diagonal right there. That's where we stop, and then we're going to go ahead and jump to right here. We're going to do the next cluster right here. So we're not coming down anymore. We're going to go right there to the left. So right to the left of that stitch marker. Do a cluster right there. And then we're going to do the same pattern, but instead now we're going to be working up the other side of the tank. So we're going to be working up this way until we hit the armhole on this side. So same thing, just pinch your fabric and go right in those spaces. creating your clusters. And really the fabric works with you. It kind of easily just guides you and you follow that nice diagonal line. Anytime if you feel like you're getting off track, you can just open it up, just check and make sure that your stripes are in line. There we go. So keep working this all the way up until you hit the armhole on this side. Okay, we made it to the other side with our contrasting stripe. First one there. And go ahead and cut off, leaving a decent tail, and pull through. And when we're done, we'll go through and then we'll tie these down. So don't worry about these loose ends. I kind of like to just leave them and deal with them all at the end. So there is our first V stripe. We're going to go on and work on the second one. So you have two options. You can either do the same exact thing. You can find that space right to the right of the stitch marker, follow your way up and put your hook in, or you can go every other. So up here, we did them in this one. We're not going to do them in this line, and we are going to do them in this line. So it's kind of like a yes, no, yes, every other. If that's easier for you, that's fine. Or you can come to the right of that stitch marker and follow all the way up. And the stitch markers are helpful either way, just so when you get down here, you can make sure you're on track, you're on the right diagonal line. So ours would be right here. Same process, leave a decent yarn tail, pull up a loop, chain your 3, and then do 2 more double crochets, creating that cluster. And then we're just going to do a cluster stitch in every space, following that diagonal line. And again, stopping right to the right of that stitch marker when we come to it. And then we make that V and work up the other side. So just keep repeating this process, working your stripes until we get to, let's see, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see, I'm thinking our 6th stripe, I'll meet back up with you. That's when it's actually going to wrap around to the back of the tank. And that gives a really neat look, but it does get a little bit trickier. So I'll meet up with you after our 5th stripe to work on our 6th stripe that actually will end up wrapping around and starting on the back side. Okay, so we have our first 5 stripes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we're ready to go on to our 6th stripe. And the difference with this one is it's going to wrap around to the back. So you can see this 5th stripe still stops right there at the armhole. This one is actually going to wrap around to the back. So it's really not that tricky. We're going to be doing the same exact thing. We just have to make sure we start in the right spot. So same process as before. Find that next stitch marker, find the space to the right of it, and we're going to follow that all the way up. So when I get to the side, I'm just going to kind of put my finger in that space so I can keep track of it. And then just keep following that all the way to the back, and that'll land us right there. So it's going to look really neat because it's going to give a design detail on the back and add some interest to it, that those stripes actually wrap around to the back. So now that we have that space, same as before, just yarn over, pull up a loop, and start creating your clusters. You could count 2 over like we were doing before, the every other. It just gets a little bit tricky when you come around that armhole. But other than that, it's exactly the same. So now we're doing that last cluster in that space right to the right of that stitch marker. So that's when we know we're going to stop. So right when you hit that space right here, that's the end of that side. Then we're going to skip right to the space right next to that cluster, so right to the left of it. So then just do a cluster right into that space. Okay, so same as the front stripes. Just going to do That stripe is going to be on the space on each side of that cluster, and then we're just going to follow this all the way up. So just continue your stripe, following that diagonal line all the way to the front where it meets those front stripes. It's going to touch that last 5th stripe. So we're coming to the end of our first stripe, right where it wraps around to the front, and we're going to go ahead and do one more cluster right there. We want this stripe to touch the front one, so go ahead and do one more cluster. We want them butted up right next to each other. Great. And when you get that last cluster there, go ahead and trim off and just pull through. And you can tie those down now. You can do it later. I kind of like to wait till I'm all done, but that's up to you. So we've got our first back stripe. Looks nice and straight and clean. So I want you to go ahead and do the next 2 stripes. So same exact method. You're going to find the 2 gaps on the side of your stitch marker. You're going to start with the one on the right and follow that all the way to the front, and then you'll insert your hook and bring your stripe down. When you get to this space, you're going to skip and go right over to the left side of that cluster. So same exact process you did for this first stripe, okay? So go ahead and do the next 2 stripes, and then when you get down to that 3rd one, the one starting with cluster number 23, I'm going to catch back up with you because it does get a little bit different on the side. As I mentioned, we have a little bit bigger space. We have 3 clusters between this instead of 2. Because we are decreasing on the side, we decreased a stitch and also in essence decreased a row, one of these diagonal rows. So it'll be super easy, but I'll catch back up with you for that stripe just to make sure we're on track. Okay, we finished our first 3 stripes on the back. Now we're going on to our 4th stripe. Now this one gets a little bit trickier, so I'm going to walk you through it. This one's a little bit different because we have to contend with those decreases on the side. The first 3 stripes on the back, we didn't have the decreases, so they went really smoothly. And this is going to be fine. You just have to be a little bit careful on the side. So right here, we skipped 3 clusters as opposed to for the first 3 stripes when there was only 2. But you'll find as we come around to the front, there's only going to be 2 clusters between, and it will widen right here at the side to go down to 3. So same process, you can do this one of 2 ways. You can find that right gap right next to the stitch marker and follow it up like before. You can also come to the front and start up. This is definitely where we're going to start, but you can start up here if you prefer. So we started here, we are not going to stitch here, and we will stitch here. So if this is easier, we can start right here. But the difference is going to be when we come to the side marker where we did our decrease. So I'm going to turn it to the side and explain that a little bit better so you can see. Okay, so up here, we would be starting right here. I'm going to put our hook, and this is where we would be doing our clusters. Here at the bottom, if I follow my line up, my gaps, it comes right here. So see how those are slightly off from each other? They don't quite line up. And that's because of this decrease here. This decrease kind of shifted everything just slightly. So it's not going to be a big deal. We're just going to kind of merge this right there. So I'm going to follow this really slowly. So we're going to be doing our clusters right here on each stitch. Okay, right along this line. And then right here, right before we get to that side seam, you see that marking that decrease, that's where it shifts a little bit. So right when you get here, you can kind of stop and just reassess and look. This is when it's going to jump down. So after this, we're going to come down to this cluster. And if you find it easier to mark it, go right ahead, just so you know, hey, I'm going in this one now. So you're still going to follow this line, and it's going to blend nicely. You're not even going to notice, but you will see when you're doing these, there's only one cluster, like right here. There's only one cluster between your stripes. all of a sudden, when you shift down, you're gonna see, oh, there's 2 clusters between. And that's good. That's what you want. Right here at the side, where those decreases are, that's where you'll shift and it will widen slightly. So if that helps, I definitely suggest just put a stitch marker, put a yarn, whatever helps you. Just know right there when you get kind of catty corner to where that decrease is, and you can see it's almost like there's 2 clusters right on top of each other. That's where the shift was that slightly shifted our lines. So just go ahead and go back up to the top, just like we've been doing. I'm going to leave that in there to remind us. And we're going to start the same way every other round. Really, this is exactly the same. The only thing different is that shift a little bit at the side. So go ahead and make your clusters all the way down, just like we've been doing, until you hit that stitch marker that we just marked where it shifts slightly. Okay, I'm doing my cluster now right where that stitch marker is that I marked. Just going to leave it in there for a second. Just work that cluster right into that space. And then just continue in that diagonal fashion. I'm going to do a couple more clusters and then I'll show you how it's slightly shifted, but it's going to blend. It's going to look really nice. And you won't even notice. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. So there you go. So you can see, I'm going to pull this out. This was where we marked it, just so you can see better without all these stitch markers in the way. So you can slightly see where that got wider. So right here, there's just 1 cluster between those. And right there where it shifted, now you have 2. But that's going to be right there at the side, right at your hip. It's going to blend. It's going to look really nice. And it just widens. So this stripe here for the last few is just a little bit wider. But it's going to look really nice. It's going to look really uniform. So just continue down just the way you've been doing, all the way to that stitch marker at the center back, and then go up the other side. You're going to be repeating this exact same method with the next stripes. Because you have these decreases on the side, like I said, it shifts the stripes a little bit, so you're going to have to contend with that. But just utilize your stitch markers. Just follow it up, use your stitch marker to mark. It'll keep you right on track. Okay, I'm working on my 4th stripe on the back. I'm just following that diagonal line all the way up, but I'm coming to that side seam, so I know it's going to get slightly wonky. It's going to shift a little bit, so I'm just being kind of mindful of that going up. But I'm just going to keep following this diagonal line. If you want to mark it and that's easier for you, certainly do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you'll find if you just follow this line, it'll kind of shift on its own. It'll merge, and you really won't have to worry about it. So we're just going to keep following this line up, and I'll open it up here in a second for you. We know that that shift's going to happen right diagonal of where that stitch marker was, right where we did that decrease. Let's do one more, and we'll check it and make sure we're in line. Okay. And open it up and check. So great, so you can see where it gets wider here than narrows, right where that stitch marker is. So we just followed that diagonal line and it really just shifted on its own. If you feel like it's helpful to put a stitch marker there where it shifts, definitely do that. So right here you can see that decrease again, where it looks like there's 2 clusters stacked on top of each other. And you can see that shift. So right after that, there's just 1 full cluster between the stripes. As of down here, there's 2 full clusters between. So that just kind of works itself out. Just follow those clusters all the way up. That line just blends nicely. So go ahead and finish all your stripes the same way we've been doing. The last few are going to be just like this one, where you have that decrease on the side to contend with. But like I said, just follow that diagonal line and it should work its way out. And then we'll meet back up at the end to sew in our ends and remove all our stitch markers. So I finished all 7 of the back stripes. You can see here that these last ones, the last 1, 2, 3, 4 stripes are a little bit wider between. These ones here, the first 3, are a little bit more narrow, but they really do blend. It's not obvious and it really just flows really nicely. So now we have all these loose ends to tie into the front. So pretty much the same method as the front stripes. These ones are just a little bit different because they're butting up right to this last bottom 6th stripe. I've already tied in the first 2 loose ends of these first 2 stripes just to show you how it should look. It should really come flush with this bottom 6th stripe on the front. So I'm going to show you right here with this 3rd stripe. Go ahead and take your yarn tail and your tapestry needle. And you can see that yarn tail is coming through the back right there. Remember where we started that cluster with our chain 3. So take your yarn tail and come up right here. So right after this cluster, but between these 2 legs of the next 2 stitches. And then straighten your cluster out a little bit. And remember that first leg of that cluster is that chain 3. So we want to catch the top chain right there of the chain 3. Pull through and then go right back through the exact place you came in between those 2 legs of that stitch. I'm going to go to the inside of the dress and pull through and just pull that pretty snug. There you go. And then you're going to want to just tie that off on the inside, tie it off real snug and weave in those loose ends. And finish this process all the way around. We have a lot of loose ends here to tie off. So just make sure they're tied off securely on the inside and woven in. And repeat that with the ones on the side as well. Okay, we finished tying off all those loose ends on those stripes. Now the only thing to do is to remove all these stitch markers, which at this point are all over our dress. And then you are done. Your dress is ready to wear. Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial today. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to comment below, or you can always reach out privately through my website through the Contact Us tab. If you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe.